It is the last day of the week, and Sunset News brings you the latest news before you enjoy your weekend. As always, we bring you news, weather, economics, and sports. I am Glenna Rashipura. Now, first up in the news tonight, parents whose children attend Omungurwa Luwumwe Secondary School continue to cater for the needs of the school hostel with no assistance from the Education Ministry since its completion. Now, in 2019, now Education Minister Ananga Hipondokwa, who was a deputy at the time, promised that once the hostel was completed, she would ensure that it was registered and assistance is provided by the government. Years later, this has not been done. The hostel remains unregistered after it was completed in 2020, leaving the school to source funds from Friends of Education to feed its 256 learners. Now, the establishment of satellite campuses can support the expansion of services to rural areas and reduce cost of access to higher education for communities. Now, these were the remarks of Prime Minister Sarah Kukongwela-Amadila during the launch of the Namibia University for Science and Technology campus at Enhana town on Thursday. According to the Prime Minister, this is a result of having recognized the challenges that rural-urban migration places on urban development, especially in respect to Windhoek. In addition to the promotion of greater inclusion and access for rural communities, which the satellite campus brings, it also has the added benefit of creating new employment opportunities, she said. Now, Kukongwela-Amadila added that the establishment of more campuses is also intended to serve students who cannot travel far from home due to family responsibilities, job responsibilities, and financial constraints, as well as to curb rural-urban migration. Now, moving on, while it is generally accepted that there is no perfect electoral body, Namibia's Electoral Commission has taken up the challenge to chase the elusive dream of perfection. Now, the Electoral Commission of Namibia is ambitious in its endeavors of its draft strategic plan for 2022 to 2027 is anything to go by. Now, in formulating the document, the ECN looked at various policy documents, including Vision 2030, the National Development Plans, and the Harambee Prosperity Plans. The Commission's Chief Executive Officer and Referendum Officer, Tio Muyoro, said recently. Now, the government, in line with the targets of the Harambee Prosperity Plan 2, intends to establish public sector dialysis units at Windhoek Central, Oshakati Intermediate, as well as at Keetmanshoop, Swakopmund, Rundu, and Katima Mulilo state hospitals. In the immediate term, steps have been taken to create dialysis capacity. 6 dialysis chairs are included for installation with the extension of the TB unit at the Katutura Intermediate Hospital. This project is anticipated to be completed within this financial year. At the Ministry of Health and Social Welfare, Dr. Kalumbi Shangula, in the National Assembly said that the procurement process has also commenced for the establishment of a full dialysis unit with 12 dialysis chairs at Oshakati Intermediate Hospital, while the development of a dialysis unit at the Rundu State Hospital will be undertaken with the upgrading of intensive care unit. Shankula emphasized the establishment of dialysis units go beyond the availability of physical space, the procurement of machinery and consumables. Another critical aspect is the availability of well-trained and qualified human resource, which need to be identified and deployed. Now, President Hage Geingob opened the annual cabinet retreat at the Safari Hotel in Windhoek on Friday morning. One of our great success remains Namibia's position as a country with the freest press in Africa, a position we have maintained to the chagrin of certain elements of our society, he said. He spoke about activities aimed at ensuring that accountability and transparency are enhanced in Namibia, saying that amongst these being our commitment to promulgate access to information law. Geingob says the importance of promoting free access to information cannot be understated, as it is one of the defining characteristics of 21st century democratic nations, such as Namibia. Thus, information should not only be made available, but it should be the correct information and should be availed in a timely manner. Now, the President praised the positive results from the COVID-19 Communication Center. The center has been resounding success as an integral communications mechanism and resource center during our war against COVID-19. We should follow this example and ensure that we exercise greater openness when it comes to communicating the programs of the government to the people. Now, let us continue to use the Government Communication Center as a platform for educating our citizens on their rights and responsibilities and raising awareness about the government programs and initiatives, he said. Now, in our community talk, the Japanese government donates rice, and we look at bee hotels. To stay with us right after the break.
Have you received a loan from NSFAF? NSFAF loan is the same as any other loan. It must be paid and settled. NSFAF has a set of guidelines on how you can repay your loan and become debt-free. Therefore, it is important that you, a former beneficiary and a responsible Namibian, show your patriotism by helping pay back your loan and thus helping NSFAF become a revolving fund for the benefit of future potential students. By failing to pay back your NSFAF loan, you risk being blacklisted or having a court order against you. So arrange with the fund to pay back your loan today. For more information on how you can repay your loan, visit our website at www.nasfaf.na or visit our Facebook page or Twitter. Do the right thing and hashtag #paybackthemoney.
Welcome back to Sunset News. Now let's take a look at our community talk. Now, the Japanese government yesterday donated 3,000 tons of rice to the Namibian government to be distributed amongst residents of drought-stricken areas of the Erongo, Kunene, and Omusati regions. Now, Jareen Hoff reports. Let's have a look.
The three drought-affected regions of Erongo, Kunene, and Omusati are some of the beneficiaries of the 3,000 tons of rice donated to Namibia by the Japanese government. The rice, worth $38.4 million Namibian dollars, was handed over by the Japanese ambassador to Namibia, Hideaki Harada, in Windhoek on Wednesday. Accepting the donation, Prime Minister Sarah Kokongawa-Amadila said that the donation will benefit the three regions for at least 3 months and will also go a long way in complementing government's relief program for food-insecure Namibians. Harada said the donation is a sign of gratitude from Japan and proof of the cordial relations to support Namibia's efforts of tackling difficulties caused by the drought and outbreak of COVID-19. He added that it is important to improve livelihoods of vulnerable and food security system in Namibia as a whole. This is why Japan is implementing a technical cooperation project through JICA in the northern regions. This aims to increase food production and to improve livelihoods of small-scale farmers through diversification of agricultural and farm products to provide skills training among others, the ambassador noted. Kokongawa-Amadila continued by saying that government is also providing relief assistance to communities in the Otjozondjupa and Omaheke regions affected by hail and windstorms in December 2021 and January 2022. Over the past years, Namibia has been experiencing periods of droughts and floods, and in 2019, President Hage Geingob declared a state of emergency to March 2020 due to the negative impact it posed on human and animals' livelihood. Despite improved rainfall experienced in the country during this past season, the three regions continue to experience prolonged drought spells. Government thus extended the drought relief intervention program until June 2022.
What a wonderful initiative. Now, in our next video, Yolanda Nell takes a look at how bee hotels can help bees find adequate habitats to lay their eggs. Let's have a look.
So a bee hotel is a man-made nesting place for solitary bees. One solitary bee does the pollination work for approximately 100 honeybees. So it's very important to protect their habitat. Solitary bees are not simply bees who have left the hive and are now alone. There are over 200 species of solitary bees, and as the name suggests, they live alone, although in truth they often nest together to one another. They do not produce honey, do not have a queen, and they do not live in hives. As pollinators, the solitary bee carry out a vital role in pollinating our crops and also flowers and trees. In some parts of China, pollination is already being undertaken by hand using paintbrushes because there are no bees left to do it naturally. Another important reason to keep them safe. Because solitary bees do not have to store honey to protect, they are non-aggressive, meaning they are safe around pets and children. Generally speaking, solitary bees emerge from their nest in the spring. Males emerge first, and after feeding, they hang around the nest waiting for the females. Once mating is complete, the male dives fairly quickly, and after mating, the females will begin the process of nesting, selecting a suitable site, constructing the nest, and laying anything between 1 and 20 eggs. Their habitat is under increasing threat. As we build more and more properties and landscapes, our gardens, we unwittingly destroy habitat and nests as we do so. So, a bee hotel from Boutique, Namibia, is the perfect solution, and it gives them a safe haven to nest and produce the next generation of pollinators. So head down to her Instagram page. Her work is fantastic, as you can see.
Now, in our story of the day, takes us to the Holy Cross Convent and their solidarity with children in Ukraine. More on this right after the break. Welcome back, and thank you for staying with Sunset News. Now, in our story of the day, the Holy Cross Convent School sang a song on Friday to share their love with children in Ukraine. Now, Principal Claire Colbrecht talks to Yolanda Nell. Let's have a look.
Through the Holy Cross Convent School's Children Helping Children mission, they learn to have concern for other children all around the world. The school chose to sing Heal the World on Friday morning to share their love with the children suffering in Ukraine. Ms. Franika Mare coordinated the performance of the song by the whole school with blue and yellow flags to share their message of making the world a better place for all the world's children.
Now, in economic news after the break, we discuss fuel price increases in Namibia. Right after the break, do stay with us. Thank you for staying with Sunset News. Now let's take a look at our economic news. Now, the Namibian government is exploring cushioning measures as more oil price increases are expected due to the continuous geopolitical tensions between Russia and Ukraine. Now, the Ministry of Mines and Energy Senior Public Relations Officer Andreas Simon told NAMPA that Namibians should expect a further fuel price increment. However, government through the National Energy Fund is exploring all measures to stabilize the pump price in an effort to ease the burden on the consumers. Now, the country is experiencing its largest ever fuel increase in March, with the petrol price jumping at $1.20 per litre, while the diesel got to $1.30 Namibian dollars per litre more expensive. Now, moving on to our next story, the Namibia Revenue Agency has exceeded its revenue target for 2021 to 2022. Monique Adams spoke to NAMRA Commissioner Sam Shiwute and filed this video.
And because we do believe that once our system are operating optimally, once we make sure that we have the right people in the right position, once we make sure that our new business processes that have just been re-engineered is being implemented. Once we implement that and we continuously work on the organizational structure, NAMRA will be able then to be a world-class revenue agency serving with passion to positively impact the livelihood of every Namibian. I'm also very pleased to announce for the first time that this year our revenue target from the Ministry of Finance was 49.4 billion. That is what we were expected to collect by the 31st of March 2022. But I'm very pleased to report that by the 28th of February 2022, the Namibia Revenue Agency have successfully collected an amount of 49.9 billion. We have exceeded our target, revenue target with 1% by February. And by the end of March 2022, we will be able to account and report to the Namibian nation the total amount with which we have exceeded our revenue target. Because the actual amount with which we have exceeded the revenue target by the end of February is 463 million. But wait until the end of March.
Now let's take a look at our economic indicators. Now the Namibian dollar traded down against all major currencies. On the Namibian Stock Exchange, MTC and Namibian breweries are down, while Capricorn Investment and FirstRand is up. The local index is down by 0.75%, while the overall index is up by 2.37%. Most commodities are down, oil with another 3.8%. The exception is copper, that is up with 1.29%. Up next is our weather forecast for tomorrow. Do stay tuned. Welcome back and thank you for staying with Sunset News. We now take a look at our weather story. Now, the much anticipated rain was finally received over the Kunene region during February, with most places that recorded 2 to 3 times the usual amount for the month. Now, according to the rainfall bulletin for February by the Namibia Meteorological Services, the Erongo and southern regions also received 2 to 4 times the average amount of rainfall for the month, with the exception of the far southwestern areas. Now, however, after an exceptional rainfall performance during January, the Zambezi region received little to no rain during February. Let's have a look at the weather predictions for Saturday. Cloudy conditions is predicted for the entire northern part of the country, with Omaruru being the hottest at 34 degrees. Clouds are also predicted for most of the west and the south. Mariental at 36 degrees and Adamsfly at 37 degrees will be the hottest. Now let's have a look at Sunday's weather. The prediction stays much the same from Sunday, with clouds over most of the northern parts and temperatures varying between 16 and 32 degrees. Cloudy conditions and rain is expected for the central coast. The hottest place in Namibia is Aranos at 35 degrees. Now, the IMF is worried about Africa's vulnerability to higher food and fuel prices due to the happenings in the Ukraine. This is our story in the international news slot after the break. Do stay with us. Welcome back to Sunset News. Now let's take a look at our international news. Now, Africa's economic outlook is particularly vulnerable to higher food and fuel prices prompted by Russia's invasion of Ukraine, as well as to reduce tourism revenues and diminished access to financial services. Now, finance ministers and central bank governors said, at this difficult moment, the fund stands ready to help African countries reduce the cost of any needed policy adjustments through policy advice, capacity development, and lending. Now, up next, sports news is up next. We talk NAPSO athletics, netball, and marathons. More on this right after the break. Welcome back to Sunset News. Now let's take a look at our sports news. Now, the Namibian Private School Sports Organization Athletics is currently underway in Swakopmund. There are about 17 schools participating with close to 500 athletes in action. Athletes are competing in athletics, high jump, long jump, discus, shot put, javelin, and hurdles. Please do catch the action on all Namibia Media Holdings platforms. Now, in our next story, Wanderers and NAST have their sights set on glory tonight as both teams get the baptism in the 2022 Commerce Netball League season at the Wanderers Sports Field. Now, the anticipated league returns at 6 p.m. with fierce clashes expected at the courts. Now, the Wanderers and the NAST match will be on Court A, while Court B will host a match between NDF Windhoek and Nampo. Now, the rest of the matches will continue on Saturday at Rehoboth and Windhoek. Now, the netball region consists of 17 clubs and over 30 teams affiliated to it. Now, in our next story, the Rosing Marathon runners are set for yet another virtual marathon, which kicks off tomorrow. Last year, the event was held on a virtual basis due to the coronavirus outbreak, but organizers once again believe that holding the marathon virtually will be a success as participants vie for top places. Now, Rosing Uranium has increased the annual marathon prize by 10,000 Namibian dollars, which will see the winners taking home 20,000 Namibian dollars in cash prizes. Now, the winning athletes will also receive a development bonus. Stay tuned for highlights right after the break. Thank you for staying with Sunset News. Now, if you've just joined us, here are your highlights. Parents whose children attend Omungu Waluemwe Secondary School continue to cater for the needs of the school hostel with no assistance from the Education Ministry since its completion. Now, the hostel remains unregistered after it was completed in 2020, leaving the school to source funds from Friends of Education to feed its 256 learners. Now, the establishment of satellite campuses can support the expansion of service to rural areas and reduce cost of access to higher education for communities. These were the remarks of Prime Minister Sarah Kukongwelwa-Amadila during the launch of the Namibia University for Science and Technology campus at Enhana Town on Thursday. Now, according to the Prime Minister, this is a result of having recognized the challenges that rural-urban migration places on urban development, especially in respect to Windhoek. Now, while it is generally accepted that there is no perfect electoral body, Namibia's Electoral Commission has taken up the challenge to chase the elusive dream of perfection. Now, the Electoral Commission of Namibia is ambitious in its endeavors if its draft strategic plan for 2022 to 2027 is anything to go by. Now, with that, we have reached the end of our show. Thank you for joining us on this lovely Friday evening. Make sure you join Sunset News on Facebook, on all the animate platforms, on weekdays, as well as on our website, oneup2.com. Now, Sunset News screens on DSTV channel 285 and on GoTV channel 94 every weekday from 7:30 to 8 p.m. I am Glenn Rashipura, and this is Sunset News. Don't end your day without us.